Well, Wall Street is still getting rocked. That's our top story today on the Wall Report. I'm your host, Greta Wall. The major indices are all sharply lower today, with the Dow shedding more than 600 points, the Nasdaq plunging nearly 4%, and the S&P 500 tumbling to a new low for 2022. And this drop comes amid concerns the Fed's tightening policies will dent economic growth. And although the Fed and economists are hopeful inflation may have already peaked, U.S. consumers are still expecting price pressures to remain high. The New York Fed's April survey of consumer expectations shows Americans expect inflation to still be at 6.3% 1 year from now. Now that's a 0.3% decline from the record high set back in March, but consumers do still expect their household spending to rise 8% over the next year as prices remain elevated. Respondents to the survey said they expect inflation to be at 3.9% in 3 years, up 0.2% from their expectations in March. And as Wall Street continues to fall, the crypto market is still following suit as well. Bitcoin is down over 15% in the past 7 days, dropping to 32,500 today. ETHEREUM is also down about 15% over the past week to just under 2,400. Bitcoin did rally to a recent high of 40,000 after the Fed decision last Wednesday, but then quickly gave up those gains as the stock market pulled back. The coin is down more than 50% from its record high back in November. The global crypto market cap is down more than 5% in the past 24 hours, falling to $1.57 trillion. Now, oil prices are also tumbling today as the dollar surges and COVID lockdowns continue in China. West Texas Intermediate crude futures down more than 5% to about $103 per barrel, with Brent crude futures also dropping more than 5% to about $106 per barrel. The dollar hit a fresh 20-year high, making oil more expensive for foreign currency holders, and concerns about slowing economic growth are weighing on oil prices just like the rest of the market. And as traders remain focused on inflation and the Fed's response to those high prices, earnings are still trickling in as well. Tyson Foods shares are up about 0.5% today after beating fiscal Q2 expectations. The meat company reported adjusted earnings of $2.29 per share on $13.1 billion in revenue. Now that topped analyst expectations on the top and bottom line. Tyson said the average sales price of its products rose last quarter due to the effects of pricing initiatives in an inflationary cost environment. Now, beef revenue jumped more than 23% year over year, while pork sales were up more than 10%, chicken revenue jumped more than 14%, and sales of prepared foods rose 15.9%. Now, that's not sales in number of items purchased, but sales rather in dollars purchased, and those increases come again as Tyson did raise its prices in response to inflation. Now, Tyson did hike its full-year revenue forecast, now expecting between $52 billion and $54 billion in sales this year, up from the previous forecast for $49 billion to $51 billion. Now, Palantir shares are plunging more than 20% today after missing Q1 expectations. The data analytics company reported adjusted earnings of just 2 cents per share on $446.4 million in revenue. That missed the company's own forecast for revenue of $447 million and was weaker than analyst expectations for earnings. Commercial revenue rose 54% year over year to $205 million, which did top analyst estimates for $193 million. But Palantir forecast Q2 revenue of just $470 million versus analyst consensus estimates for $484 million. The company reiterated its long-term forecast for annual revenue growth of 30% or better through 2025. And now BioNTech shares are rallying more than 5% today after the company did report strong Q1 earnings boosted by COVID vaccine sales. The German pharmaceutical company reported earnings of €14 and 24 cents per share on 6.37 billion euros in revenue. Now that topped analyst expectations on the top and bottom line. The company said the revenue jump was mainly due to increased commercial revenues from the supply and sale of its COVID vaccine worldwide. Now, BioNTech reiterated its full-year outlook for COVID vaccine revenue between 13 billion to 17 billion euros this year. Now, meantime, Uber shares are tumbling more than 7% today after the CEO announced new cost-cutting measures. In an email to employees, CEO Dara Khosrowshahi said he has spent several days meeting investors in New York and Boston since the company reported earnings last week. He said the market is experiencing a seismic shift and Uber needs to react accordingly. The CEO said the company will cut down spending on marketing and incentives and treat hiring as a privilege. And meantime, Rivian shares are plunging nearly 15% today after Ford announced plans to sell some of its stock in the electric truck maker. CNBC reporting that Ford plans to sell 8 million of its Rivian shares after the insider lockup for the stock did expire on Sunday. Ford owns 102 million Rivian shares and will execute that sale through Goldman Sachs. Rivian stock has been hit hard in recent months, and the plunge in Rivian stock through the beginning of this year did dent Ford's earnings last week. Now, JP Chase also plans to sell between 13 million and 15 million Rivian shares. The truck maker did slash its production forecast earlier this year as it struggles with supply chain issues. Rivian is scheduled to report Q1 earnings after the market close this Wednesday. And it is officially inflation week. Traders have their eyes on Wednesday, with the Bureau of Labor Statistics set to release the April Consumer Price Index, followed by the Producer Price Index on Thursday. Be sure you're subscribed to my Coffee with Greta newsletter to get the latest economic data and earnings updates in your inbox ahead of the market open every single day. And I'll see you back here for the Wall Report tomorrow. Give this video a like before